Hello guys! So, continuing my series about style icons, today we're going to talk about Grace Kelly, and who didn't talk about Grace Kelly if we talk about style icons. Once we go over her outfits, we will see how actually timeless she was dressing. Grace Kelly was born in 1929 in the USA, and actually her filming career was pretty short, from 1952 to 56. She had done only around 10 movies in her life. Those movies are wonderful. I actually just started watching the whole series of Grace Kelly, so when you watch those movies, make sure you really pay a lot of attention on her hairstyle, on her jewelry, on her makeup, and of course on the way she was dressing, because that is the art itself. The peak of her career was in the 50s. I think that 50s look that she had was her iconic look. But first, let's talk about her body type. She has classic body type, and I have the whole Kibbe series on my channel. If you're interested, you can check the playlist. I'm gonna leave the link down below. So we talk a lot about different kinds of body types. So there are 5 main body types: is dramatic, romantic, gamine, classic, and naturals. Almost each type has its sharper version or softer version. Basically, it's not even the body types, it's more image identities, like David Kibbe used to say, because when we talk about body types, people start really analyzing the parameters. They get too deep into the numbers of their waist, hips, chest, and they measure themselves, and they totally forget about the most important thing, the essence, the overall bone structure, the vibe of a person, and many other things. It's just a mixture of things that is making you you. And when we talk about Grace Kelly, we talk about pure classic type. And what do we mean by classic type? It's basically the bone structure is very proportionate. It's very average. Our eyes are used to see different people. So in our mind, we kind of know approximately how the woman looks when she's tall, how the woman looks when she is tiny, how the woman looks when she's soft, has soft flesh, or she is curvy, or how she looks when she's more straight, all those things. Those pictures are in our mind, especially if we look a lot, if we analyze a lot and we look on different bodies and we try to compare them. Some people have a bit more of that vision, some people have less of that vision. So if we talk about Grace Kelly, okay, what do you think first? When you try to imagine her body, what is the first thing that you are perceiving from her? Is she extremely tall? Does she look like she's elongated? She has long arms, long legs? Not really. Do you perceive her as very tiny, short arms, short legs? Not really. No, average. Do you perceive her as very soft and voluptuous woman? Maybe a little bit, but still you can't say that she's as Marilyn Monroe, like very rounded. Do you perceive her as pretty angular and straight and pretty squarish? Not really. Comparing to Monroe, again, yes, she's a little bit more on the angular side. But if you compare her to Katharine Hepburn, for example, she is much less angular. So we can't say that something is sticking out in this case. If we talk about her face, is anything too prominent or too not prominent? She definitely has pretty soft facial features, but again, they're not as soft as voluptuous, for example, as Marilyn Monroe or Elizabeth Taylor. So she is still slightly on the moderate side in here. And her face is very proportionate. She has very evenly spaced facial features. Basically, this is what classic is. Nothing is sticking out too much. And yes, she could wear something that would make this beauty slightly dull or get slightly lost in the clothes pieces. Or she can make her beauty just shine. And what is this we're gonna see right now? First of all, I never saw her with untidy hair. So, as you know, guys, hairstyle and hair color is probably one of the most important things if we talk about style. She always had very blunt cut. Most of the time, she never had those huge layers or super long untidy hair, bad hair day or something like this. She has always had very tidy hair, beautiful curls. So that is one thing that is making classics very good looking, very expensive looking. Her makeup has never been overloaded. Just recently, I made a video about SOPHIA LOREN. Do you remember her makeup? Of course you do, because this is her iconic look, her makeup. If we talk about Marilyn Monroe, do you remember her makeup? Of course, because it was kind of iconic, Marilyn Monroe-ish makeup that many women were trying to repeat. Now, do you remember Grace Kelly's makeup? Not really, because the makeup of Grace Kelly was not part of that thing why she became that style icon. Basically, Grace Kelly is mostly the hairstyle, and the outfits. Her makeup has always been very classic. I want to warn you guys that today the word classic will sound more than 100 times, because to me Grace Kelly is like epitome of classic. She was average in size. Her height was 1 meter and 69 centimeters, or 5'5", 5'6", something like that. So she was not super tall, not super small. In numbers, both in numbers and visually. Also, as far as in this series, I talk a lot about women of old Hollywood era. Of course, we talk about 20th century and its decades, and as you know, the style decades of 20th century were very certain, and they had certain characteristics. As far as Grace Kelly, she has also been a part of that old Hollywood, and she was there throughout the decades of the 50s, 60s, and the 70s. She passed away, unfortunately, in 1982, so she was not as much in the 80s with us. So I like analyzing those icons throughout the decades and just see which decade was the most iconic for her look, which stick to her. So if we talk about Grace Kelly, I think personally that the 50s was her look. Later in this video, we're gonna talk about the 60s period of her life and the 70s. And we're gonna see how the world trends really influenced on her style and what she kept and what she changed. Another reason why she was the style icon, if we analyze her outfits, her casual outfits, most of these pieces we can find in the shops nowadays, and we can buy them and we can mix them. And of course, we won't look necessarily like Grace Kelly, but if we look at those pictures of hers, we can see how modern she looked, how relevant she looked in those pieces. You can basically dress up like Grace Kelly in a cheaper shop or in more expensive shop, or even a thrift shop that you want. I'm gonna leave the link on my body types wardrobe Pinterest board. You can check that and you can see all 13 body types in there, and under classic you will see I was looking for the similar item that she was wearing in loads of different categories and loads of different shops, just to make this compilation inspired by Grace Kelly. And I'm also gonna leave the link on just some pieces under this video, but most of the pieces you will see there. So let's now analyze her outfits. First, we start with 50s casual outfits. If we talk about the 50s, we also have to keep in mind that there were not so many clothes out there. There were not so many different types of clothes and crazy shapes or extremely weird pieces. You know, it was still pretty classic time. It was the time after war where people were creating clothes, but it was kind of similar clothes that they were wearing in their regular life. And if we talk about Grace Kelly, we can find actually very similar pieces in Marilyn Monroe's wardrobe and Audrey Hepburn's wardrobe, and so it's not a super big surprise for us. Of course, those pieces are pretty staple. First thing that I wanted to talk about is that very simple shirt and the pants. Most of the time, Grace was wearing the belt. White shirt is, of course, the staple piece in everyone's wardrobe. Probably 90% of you guys, you are interested in fashion. You probably have that basic wardrobe where you're thinking about it. You know where I bought this shirt recently? In Walmart. In Walmart, in boys section. So this one is for 14-year-old boys, but I didn't have any shops around me and I really needed something white to wear to film a couple of my music videos. The quality is not very good, so next time I will buy it somewhere else. The pants that she was wearing was mostly very straight pants. Some of them were wider leg. She never wore anything low-waisted, but it wasn't popular at the same time in the 50s, so we can't expect that. Mostly all her shirts were inside of the pants. Normally classics look amazing with regular waist pants because that gives just their proportion, same even effect as without pants. I never seen her in a t-shirt. So if we talk about everyday skirt and shirt, classics look amazing if the fabric is not hanging like that very soft and cotton that is pretty low quality. They look amazing in good quality pieces that were very well tailored and that keep its shape, but at the same time not super bulky over the top and extremely weird and asymmetrical. They look stunning in those classical symmetrical pieces. Nothing can bring their beauty more than that classic silhouette. She could play with some accessories. She could wear a hat, a scarf on her head, which looked very elegant. She could have some jewelry, but the base stayed pretty same. The colors that I mostly seen on her were black, white, of course, gray, and red. Red is also a very classic color, and I'm sure that it doesn't matter what your coloration is, you can all add that classic red to your look. She could have some color blocks. she could have all same color. When she was wearing shirt and a skirt, she also could wear a belt with a skirt. Most of her skirts were with a pretty narrow and they were below the knees, or bigger skirts, like slightly new look because it still was 50s. I rarely could see her knees. She also had simple cardigans. I think every shop still is selling those kind of cardigans, like 50s cardigans, that are slightly short, have buttons at the front. It's very symmetrical. Normally it's very thin knitted cardigans. Some of them have chunky knits. Many fashion bloggers say that this is a very old-fashioned piece, so they normally refer to that kind of a cardigan when they talk about what not to wear. At some point, I do agree with this. I think it's more with certain cardigans. I think that if we talk about classics, cardigan that has pretty thick knit and has a very good fabric or material, or let's say it's thick knitted cardigan that keeps its shape. For example, it's made of wool and cashmere, or cashmere and cotton, or just not as thin and as super small like some women like to buy this. It's so small and it's all shrinking them. I think this is when it starts looking slightly cheap and not as classy. When we talk about her casual dresses, I didn't find too many pictures, but those dresses were pretty classic. Exactly. They were very simple, they were very well tailored, and the fabric again kept its shape. She never would wear something bodycon or something too bulky and hanging on her. Maybe later in the 70s, but I'm gonna talk about this a bit later. So 50s, 60s, most of the time her dresses were very average, classy, normally same color without very busy pattern. For example, she could wear simple red dress with buttons at the front. They look amazing with shirt dresses, with something that has symmetry. They just look great in symmetry. Those dresses were pretty popular in the 50s, and we can see also Elizabeth Taylor, Marilyn Monroe, and Sophia Loren wearing those dresses, and Audrey Hepburn, of course, too. And pretty romantic and lace dress. Look how gorgeous that looks on her, so gentle. I think that kind of dress is actually like a basic summer wardrobe for any woman. I don't think that this kind of a dress can ever be not suitable to any type. It just depends on what is the outline and the shape of this dress. As far as it already has white color and lace in it, it's already pretty lightweight and looks very airy. So you can whether dress it heavier a little bit, add something to your outfit just that would make this not so light and romantic, or you can exaggerate it. Of course, for each type they have their own kind of do's and don'ts in order to how to create the outfit. It's almost never a clothes piece, it's the way you style all those clothes pieces. She would wear jeans. That kind of jeans were very popular in the 50s. There were not skinny jeans at that time, so all the jeans were kind of like straight and pretty big. So she or Marilyn Monroe, to open the ankle, just not to look very heavy, for example, she would just turn the bottom of the jeans. She would wear them again with a belt, and normally those jeans were pretty high-waisted. Of course, turtlenecks. Of course, shirts with some frills. Very modern pieces. Sweaters. Her sweaters were very simple. Again, very, classic. Keeping its shape, not super thin, and not very stretchy material. So, interesting, most of the materials that I've seen her in, they are not stretchy materials. They're not very thin. They're not hanging on her. Everything has its own shape. If we talk about costumes, that kind of costumes were very popular in the 50s. Some of them had some waist emphasis, but again, not too much. Some of them were very straight. Sometimes when it was straight, it was slightly cropped. Sometimes for some classics, it can look slightly too bulky when they're wearing something very elongated and unshaped and super oversized at the same time. So if it's straight, maybe a little bit more cropped. If it's more waist emphasis, maybe a little bit longer. So that all looks very elegant on them. Skirts, again, never seen her knees in those costumes. All those jackets, they keep its shape. It's very well tailored. And I don't know, guys, if you ever had a chance to really touch the real 50s pieces, real 50s jackets. It's actually a slightly different sensation, I can tell you. The figures of women were slightly different also at that time, so let me know in the comments if you ever encountered like really historical pieces, if you ever had a chance to touch them and to see the difference. Most of her belts actually were very classic, but for example, I found a picture with a turtle's belt on her. Now, the way she was dressed in her movies, it's a different story. Those outfits, those dresses were created specifically for those movies, and it really brings our taste to a totally new level. Many of those dresses were new look dresses, meaning that bigger skirt dress. Some of the dresses were narrower. Sometimes she would wear some costumes, for example, a white shirt, and on top she would have a jacket or cropped jacket, maybe made with cotton or something like that, again keeping its shape very well, and a skirt. Maybe it would be a pencil skirt, a skirt that would cover her knees or lower. In the movie To Catch a Thief, she was wearing that beautiful blue dress, and to me it's almost neon blue, it's almost shining. It reminds me of that Cinderella dress, Cinderella coloration. If we talk about coats, it's actually a pretty interesting thing, because some of the coats were very classic and very modern looking, so nowadays we can find pretty much same stuff in the shops. For example, this leopard coat or this coat, the silhouette of those coats is pretty average for us. But very often she would wear a bell coat, so-called bell coat, which was very popular actually in the 50s. To me, it's slightly exaggerated for classics, but on the other hand, she still looks amazing. The coat itself is slightly bulky, but because of the fabric and because of the overall outfit, because of her ankles, opened ankles, and her very delicate shoes, this is why that bulkiness actually was minimized by those other details of her outfit. Now let's talk about her in different decades. Now I was mostly talking about the 50s style, and I think that is exactly her iconic style. As I said, her filming career was pretty short, 52 to 56. Then she got married to Prince of Monaco and she became a princess. So she started having totally different life and different wardrobe and different outfits. In the 60s, the fashion changed completely, remember? So we have short geometric dresses, mini dresses a la Twiggy. We have high boots. We have back-combed hair, slightly more back-combed than normally. We have very bright makeup over her eyes and over her lips. I was trying to find her makeup in the 60s like that, but I didn't find. So I think the reason for that, she already had a different age. Also, she became a part of a royal family. So I think she had to follow a certain rules and keep herself as classy as possible. In the 60s though, she sometimes would experiment with the shape of her hair. She started to back-comb them, volumized hair. Every time classics do like over-the-top volume, that's another classic actually. So you can see that it becomes slightly disproportionate for their facial features. So they sometimes look like a Barbie doll, like that. And then in the 60s we have more graphic patterns. So this is where she started adding very weird colors into her look. Before it was, as I said, it was very classic. Now she started adding those stripes. For example, the shapes of her coats became straighter, so she would wear glasses with thicker frames, but we talk about glasses later. Now let's go to the 70s. 70s is a bit boho, right? Makeup becomes calmer, hair becomes more relaxed and not well groomed as it was in the 50s. And not as back-combed as it was in the 60s. So if we talk about 70s, it's more relaxed everything. More relaxed shapes, more relaxed dresses, bigger sleeves, longer dresses, longer silhouettes. Boho style can look amazing on every type. It's just the matter of how you choose the silhouette, the pattern, and how overall it looks. For example, classics don't look very good in extremely bright, strange colors. If you choose more classic colors for your boho outfit and more understandable pattern, for example, if it's flowers, that's amazing. It can be flowers or something else, but it should not be extremely big, because that big will just distract from their facial features. And preferably you can compensate the noise in your outfit in your silhouette. Make it narrower, or if your dress is extremely long, for example, it's almost touching the floor. If the dress is extremely long and the sleeves are puffy or big, you can always compensate it with the belt, so just to make it a little bit narrower, and make your hair like you're normally making it. Don't make it super untidy so it would be frizzy and sticking out like that. That can be your classic boho look. So you see, so if we look at Grace Kelly in the 70s, of course huge glasses was very popular at that time. Her hair, she kept it that way. Her makeup kept being very natural. Again, Grace Kelly is not too much about makeup. The dresses became much more relaxed, much more hanging on her. Again, for classics, it's best when it keeps its shape, if the fabric is a little bit more stiff. But again, as I said, you can always compensate. If we talk about glasses, most of the time in the 50s she would wear something very classic, rounded, or cat eye, rounded, cat eye with white frame, for example. If we go to the 60s, the frames became slightly more weird, thicker and oval or rounded. And if we go to the 70s, of course, it's a huge glasses. It was very popular at that time. If we talk about bags, of course, I have to talk about this. However, probably each one of you knows already about this, that Grace Kelly really loved that bag. After she just got married, she was pregnant, and she was covering her pregnant belly from the paparazzi. And that picture appeared in many magazines. At that time, she was already a style icon. So public called this bag Kelly bag. Many years later, in 1977, this bag was officially called Kelly bag. And it's still very popular. It's extremely expensive. The original bag, I think it's still existing because Grace Kelly really took care about her things and about her belongings. So everything is in a great shape. So if we talk about shoes, basically all the shoes that you can call classic and basic were presenting in her wardrobe. First of all, is shoes with high heels, middle heels, and kitten heels, small heels. Linen or cotton espadrille shoes in summer, open shoes too, ballet flats, leather moccasins, men's style boots, but still not very chunky looking, Chester boots. So that's basically what she was wearing most of the time. Jewelry. A lot of jewelry, of course, associates with Grace Kelly. And Grace Kelly jewelry was classic. Of course, she never had many chunky pieces or super unshaped or extremely geometric, extremely extravagant. Pearls, it's her thing, and many people associate that pearl necklace with Grace Kelly. Pearl earrings, or she could have metal beads here on the neck or on her ears. Very expensive jewelry, diamond jewelry, jewels, metals, stones. Another interesting detail in her look was a scarf, and it's interesting to notice that sometimes she would wear the scarf instead of a belt for her shorts or for her pants. She would make pictures with this scarf. For example, she would put it on her neck, she would put it in her pocket, she would put it here, or she would hold it in her hand, or she would put it on the back. So that's an interesting detail, and I think that many people associate Grace Kelly also with this little detail. Also, when I was researching about Jane Birkin, a little spoiler here, she would repeat that detail. She would put a scarf instead of her belt, and I don't see that very often. I think she just wanted to spice up her look. Alright, that's it. That was a pretty long video. Thank you so much to everyone who stayed with me until the end. Gonna continue this series. I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye. Subscribe on my Pinterest for 13 boards as an inspiration for the body types. Also, you can subscribe on my Instagram. All the links I'm gonna leave down below. Also, you can become my sponsor or subscribe on my Patreon for some exclusive videos, some early access to these videos, and just if you want to support me and my channel. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.